I'm a morning person. About when you get me about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when I'm at my worst.
Talking Tuscaloosa is on air live. Isn't it a YouTube page that we have? Isn't that right?
It is a YouTube page.
On the YouTube.
You should have the link to it.
Oh.
You could say it's live on Pornhub. That'd be funny.
I'd assume that's where people go to first to look for us. Podcast.
Oh, that would be a bad look for us. Talking Tuscaloosa. I think people are actually. I think this is actually all a part of the recording. I need to shut the hell up.
All right. Gosh.
Told you I'm better in the morning.
I'm sort of a morning person and sort of not. And it's Monday. It's Monday, so that like makes it worse for me. Like, If you're
sort of a morning person, it's sort of not. Don't you? Doesn't that mean you just in general suck?
Yes. I think we're finally on. All right, let me figure.
Here, I finally understand. All right, you ready?
Yep. Okay.
All right, here we go. Hey again, everybody, and welcome into Talking Tuscaloosa. Luke Robinson along with Jimmy Stein. As always, Jimmy, how are you today?
Yeah, roll tide. Getting close now.
You really aren't a morning person.
No, I'm not. I am not. I mean, it takes me. I'm not. It's not like I'm asleep. I've been awake since 6 o'clock, but I'm slow. This is the first thing I did when I walked in the office. Is this? So it's not that I'm not a morning person. This is a first thing I'm doing in the office on a Monday morning, sort of a thing. So there wasn't going to be a great mood to that, period. Right?
Yeah, that's
how everybody is, right?
It also, it doesn't exactly scream super busy lawyer, does
it? Well, no, as a matter of fact, it does. Because
wait a minute.
I'm automatically grumpy. I'm automatically grumpy at this time of the week, every week. Like if you ask me, like, okay, what's the grumpiest time for you all week long? I go, probably Monday, like at 7:30. And here we are.
What do you think? Do you think Alexander Shinara right now is doing a podcast called Talking Billboards?
No, I don't know what he's doing right now. I assume. I don't know.
And Morris Bart's doing one called Talking Hair Dye. Have you seen the Morris Bart commercials? It's so funny because when he does the live shot, his hair is one color. And then at the end, when they show him just standing there and he's got this real funky smile, like a doctor. It was like he was on an episode of Botched, and then somebody went back and tried to fix it, and his hair is much, much darker. It's funny.
Well,
so since we last spoke, Jimmy, we didn't do anything over the 4th. We do have several commitments, at least 3 that I can think of since we spoke last. Which of these 3? All right, let's do some superlatives here.
All right.
Which of these 3 is the biggest commitment to you? Which of these 3 do you think will see the earliest playing time? And which of these 3 was the biggest surprise to you? And of course, I'm talking about John. Is it Mechie? I think it's Mechie, right?
Mechie.
John Mechie, Jaleel Billingsley, and Keelan Robinson.
The best of the 3. Billingsley. Billingsley to me would be the highest rated of the 3. Of the 3, the one I would rate the highest is Billingsley, because I think he has the best chance to be a really good player. At the same time, though, I would say about Billingsley, he's a bit of a developmental guy, because even though he's a tight end, we recruited him to be a tight end. Everyone's recruiting him to be a tight end. He plays a lot of wide receiver in high school. He is not necessarily, in other words, he's not a Y at his high school. They don't really do a lot of stuff like that. So he's going to have to learn to be a line of scrimmage player. And that's going to be a tough transition for him. I would sort of suspect, Luke, that maybe even his first 2 years on campus, we don't see a whole lot of him. But I do think if he puts in the work and things pan out as they possibly could, he's going to be a really good player. I think athletically, his upside is in OJ Howard territory. That's how good I think that kid is. I would rate him the highest of the three. What about you?
Yeah,
I mean,
boy,
in
I'm
terms of
going
who
to tell you, I'm going to
rank
give,
the
I'm going to
highest.
dock him some points. Yeah, I'm going to actually dock him a few points because he is a tight end and we just don't use it enough. So if you're asking me, is the question where he's rated in various systems, or is it just
Yeah.
my rating? I'm probably going to go with Keilan Robinson as the highest rated to me, and I think he's probably the highest rated of the three in like 24/7. Is he not, or is it Mechie? I don't think Billingsley is.
I think Billingsley is, but I'm not.
I'm look it up now.
Okay, I think Billingsley is in the composite. But here's one thing I'll say about Keilan Robinson. Even though I would rank Billingsley the highest, if I'm going by nothing but straight up my opinion of watching the tape of all three, I like Keilan Robinson. And I have from minute number one.
I'm with you on that.
I like Keilan Robinson when I wasn't sure he was going to Alabama. I'm just a fan of his. I like the tape. I like the tools. There's a lot about Keilan Robinson. I like it. I think he's an every down back. I know some people look at that size and think of Alabama and say, well, Keilan Robinson will be a third down back. I don't believe that at all. I think he's an every down back. Now, of course, at Alabama, we don't even give the ball to Damian Harris or Najee Harris 25 times a game. So I don't know why people would all of a sudden. Yeah, well, I'm sure there's some fan out there going, yeah, this guy's too small. He can't carry it 20 times a game. Well, who the hell do we ever give the ball to 20 times a game? We don't even give,
Derrick Henry.
Yeah. I mean, so that's not really a thing. It's always going to be multiple backs getting carries at Alabama. That's why I think Keilan Robinson will be so effective, because that's a great role for him, that 10 to 15 carry guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. But I like Keilan. He's got great acceleration, great explosion. He's a natural back. One thing I look for about small backs is just a little hint to, to what to look for when I watch film. When I see it's going to be a small running back, what I look for on the tape is, does he consistently make his cut to the outside, or does he cut it up inside? Because the backs, in my opinion, that are consistently cutting the ball to the outside in high school really struggle in college. There's a thing that, small backs like sidelines because they don't want to take the punishment and get hit. Well, what we're looking for about a smaller back that could be successful is the smaller back that doesn't shy away from the contact. So one of the things I notice about Keilan Robinson is his cut is not always to the outside. He cuts the ball up inside consistently, meaning that he doesn't shy away from the contact. Running inside does not bother him. And as you know, being a smaller guy, he can be successful with even a smaller crease. So I like Keilan Robinson a ton. I think he's horribly underrated nationally. I think a guy with he's got an offer list of Penn State, Michigan State, Georgia. I mean, if that offer list is accurate, he's one of the more highly recruited backs in the country. So I like Keilan Robinson. I think another thing that hurts him is on one of the websites, they listed him at a size. He's actually bigger than the size he's listed at on a site or two. I bet, Luke, that Keilan Robinson at Alabama plays in the 5'10", 200-pound range. I don't think of him as a very small back. Smallish.
No, I don't think of him. He's also. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me.
Okay. Every now and again, you get a little Blade Runnery. I mean, you sort of. But I don't know. Maybe cool. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I should be Blade Runner more often. But anyway, so yeah, I like him a lot, and I also think he's extremely confident. If you believe all internet posters, and I do, then there was one on, I think, Bama Online who ran into Keilan Robinson in or something here recently, and he was talking about how uber confident the kid was, because he was wearing an Alabama cap or something, and so Keelan Robinson gave him a Roll Tide or something like that. I don't know the whole story, but I read it just thinking, man, that kid sounds like he's got a lot of confidence. And you want your running backs to have a lot of confidence, especially at Alabama, because they're going to be going up against guys with a lot of confidence. And I think he reminds me of sort of a what's that, DeAndre Swift at Georgia, except maybe not quite as fast, because DeAndre Fast is sick fast. Isn't it DeAndre Swift?
Swift, yeah, he is appropriately named. I mean, he can run. I mean, I think DeAndre's a bigger dude than Keelan, but DeAndre is a fantastic prospect, no question about it. He'll be one of the top 5 backs in the league.
You know, I'm happy about Billingsley, and you have used the comparison online, and I think even earlier today about O.J. Howard, and sort of a private school kid who's freakishly athletic and yada yada yada. But I think the most controversial of the 3 commits, considering who else is on our board, was Mechie.
Yeah,
and it sounds like to me, reading the tea leaves, that Mechie was a Gaddis guy, that Gaddis was very high on back when he was at Penn State, and now he just takes that love for Mechie to Alabama, and somehow, some way, convinced Alabama to take him. Now, I don't mean like he was a hard sell job, like you got this guy that nobody knows about. I mean, he is the highest rated of the 3. I just looked at it on the 24/7 composite, and so I think he's very good, and his highlights are good, and I think he's a great pickup. But when you talk to Alabama fans, I think a lot of them were thinking more along the lines of trying to flip a George Pickens or somebody like that versus a wide receiver of Mechie's build. Pickens can't still be flipped, or one of these other big cats we can't get out there. Devontae Lee, who Saban apparently wants at safety. But, so what's your thought on that?
I agree totally that John Mechie is, considering the wide receivers on our board, I don't know that he's the guy that you would gravitate to and go, oh, this is the one you want. That is not to say that he's not a good prospect. He's a really good prospect. If he wasn't committing to Alabama, he'd be going to Penn State. It's not like we're beating out UAB and Troy here. I mean, this kid was going to Penn State if he's not going to Alabama. And Penn State recruits extremely well these days. So it's not like I wouldn't call him a questionable take in the sense that he is absolutely an SEC player, an SEC level prospect. But compared to other guys on the board, compared to what the wide receivers we have on campus, I think it's fair to say, what is it about this guy? I think you're exactly right. It's Josh Gaddis, Alabama's new wide receiver coach, who was recruiting John Mechie to Penn State initially. It's clear Gaddis loves this kid. And one thing Nick Saban will do, like most coaches, is while it's generally a staff consensus signed off on by Nick Saban about whether we take a kid or not, there is always huge leeway given to the assistant coach. If you are the kid's geography coach, meaning, that this kid's in your area and he plays your position, and you go to the head coach saying, this is the kid I want, that coach gets a lot of leeway, because ultimately whether Josh Gaddis is successful or not at Alabama is going to depend on him having good players. So when you think about it, and it sounds like it's an over-dramatization, but it's not at all. These coaches' jobs depend on the kids that play for them. And Gaddis is basically betting his job on this kid, because he's like, hey, this is the guy I want. And when that's the case, you have to give the coach a lot of leeway there, because they realize what's on the line. So for that reason, I'm very excited about John Mechie, because Josh Gaddis is, and Gaddis has all the makings to be a really smart, great coach. And so I'm totally on board with this. Looking forward to seeing him play for Alabama for sure. Is he a super highly rated? See, one of the reasons, Luke, he's not be super highly rated is receivers oftentimes, to create a lot of attention in the recruiting world, you're either a big receiver or you are exceptionally fast. And Mechie is neither one of those things. He's at 6'1", 195, is a standard sized SEC receiver prospect. He runs in the mid 4.6 range. So I would say he has average SEC speed for the position. So in terms of like, well, what makes him stand out? I'll tell you what makes him stand out. Josh Gaddis loves him. So that's what makes him stand out. Now, is it going to work out? We'll find out. But you know, but you know, Gaddis is willing to bet on the kid. So should we.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That if Gaddis had gone to Saban and said, "Hey, look, I know this kid is maybe a little bit further down on our board, but I love him, and he's man, I was dying to get him at Penn State. And I think he would be fantastic at Alabama." And Saban went, nah, let's hold off. I think you take a coach that you just hired that's recruiting his cojones off, and you sort of deflate him a little bit. Now, Saban is not a rah-rah, guy with his coaches, it sure seems. But I think this would be a bad move because maybe Saban looked at this like, okay, yes, I have a couple of guys rated higher, or our board does, but Josh Gaddis loves him. I brought him in here. I got to trust his judgment somewhat. And maybe that's where that comes from. Again, it sounds like we're knocking the kid. That is not the case at all. It's just that compared to other guys that we have committed in this class, which is a disgustingly good class, it looks like, oh, why are you taking the number 276 guy in the country when you've got several receivers who are in the top 100 or even top 50 who are giving you very serious looks? And look, I'm fine with it. If Gaddis loves him, I hate to be this way because it always sounds like you're just going to blindly follow the coaches, but Gaddis really does seem to love this guy, so it makes me excited. And I loved his commitment video too, by the way.
He did have one of the he's very you can't call the commitment video old school yet because they're sort of new, but and Billingsley's very powerful too. Billingsley's commitment video was all about he obviously is very tight with his grandmother who passed away in 2016, and Billingsley's commitment video was basically a tribute to her. But yeah, Mechie is he is from Maryland. I guess he's very close to DC. I know in Mike Loxley's recruiting area as well. Is
he at the Petty School? Something called the Petty School in New Jersey, though? Isn't that where he is?
No, he goes to St. Hagerstown, Maryland. It's St.
That's
James.
what I thought too. Okay, now I'm looking
Hagerstown, Maryland. But he did spend some time in New Jersey. He went to both, dude. He went to both. I think he started his high school career there in New Jersey. He's moved around a lot.
Well, that's okay. I thought that was right because Hagerstown, Robinson Iron did a fountain in Hagerstown a while back. That's why it struck me. And so but I looked at his profile just to be able to talk about him, and it still has him at the Petty School in Hightstown, New Jersey, on 24/7. So they just have to correct that.
Yep, I believe he's attended both. He was also reclassified at one point. At one point, he was supposed to be a 2018 kid, and then got reclassified to 2019. So obviously, that happens.
Isn't it usually the other way around?
Well, when you move around a lot. I mean, I would guess without knowing, and since he's transferred high schools, there's a good chance that maybe some credits weren't accepted at a new school. So you have to redo those classes again. That can back you up. So I'm guessing that's what happened with him. But yeah, recruiting overall is going fantastic. I said this last week in tweets or message or whatever, but at this point, and we're 20 commitments in, we've signed classes smaller than what we've got committed already. But at this point, I think it's the best of all of the Saban classes. And it's not necessarily because it's loaded with superstars so much as it is extremely good from top to bottom. We didn't take a whole lot of flyers here. Just about everyone that is committed to Alabama has multiple quality offers from many Power 5 schools. Most classes are going to have 3, 4, 5 guys that the staff likes that very few other SEC programs like. But this time around, they sort of are just focusing on high quality guys, period.
Well, when our lowest rated guy is the top kicker in the country,
exactly,
that's a positive sign, right?
Exactly. He's
the only 3-star in the whole class.
And I've been ranking players going all the way back to 1990. So doing it 28 years, 29 years now, I have still never in my mind figured out how to rank the kickers compared to everybody else. It's just hard to do. What I've settled on, if you want to call it that, is sort of a lot like the NFL draft. I'll rank a kicker really high every once in a blue moon that appears to be a total freak, because what kickers / punters go in the first round or even the second round? Almost none. Almost none. Most kickers in the NFL right now that are kicking were undrafted free agents. So I sort of rank kickers accordingly. It has nothing to do against kickers. It's not that I don't believe kickers are important. I think they're vital, but it's just very difficult. How do you rank a kicker versus an offensive tackle type prospect? It's extremely difficult to quantify it. So yeah, Will Richard is our lowest rated signee, but he does happen to be, per Chris Saylor anyway, the highest rated kicker in the entire country. So it's kind of weird to say, well, he's the best player at his position, but we're going to rank him last in this class. It's kind of silly, but that's just the way it is with the kickers.
I'm going to tell you, if he were a four-star, his commitment to Alabama may dock him a star, just because our kickers seem to go into kicker purgatory as soon as they get here.
That's certainly the reputation. I think, though, I think we're going to be really good at kicker even this fall, because I think what we're going to have at kicker is either a high-quality Joseph Bulovas, who was very good this spring, or he's going to be beaten out by Austin Jones. And to beat out Bulovas, you have to be pretty good. And Austin Jones' numbers at Temple were pretty good. So I think the kicker is going to be Austin Jones, and I think he's going to be pretty good. Now, obviously, we could debate what pretty good means. He's not going to make every kick. He's not going to be a first-team All-American. I just don't think, compared to all the other kickers, that Austin Jones is going to be pedestrian or bad. I think he's going to be pretty good. I think. We'll see. Sometimes they wear that Alabama jersey and things can go a little sideways.
Yeah.
Like kicks.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about things going sideways. You talk about aptly using a description there. Okay. So let's move a little bit forward. Have you heard all the Tim? I don't even want to spend a lot of time talking about Tim Brando, because I feel like he's a very, hey, look over here, I'm still relevant kind of guy. But he apparently had another hissy fit about Alabama. Go ahead and pencil Alabama in the playoffs because of their easy schedule. And I mean, why do we get beat up for this? When you look around the country, how many people have just this really arduous task in front of them? I mean, you could nitpick them all, number one. I mean, there are some that are terribly easy, but see, we don't get to play Alabama. We don't get to play us. And so I think that is, I mean, we could play Clemson, but Alabama and Clemson shouldn't play each other in the regular season. If you ask me, that'd be stupid. Why would they? I mean, or Ohio State. I don't want to play Ohio State in the regular season right now. I mean, we're the best three programs out there, if you ask me. Now, we just played Florida State, who's one of them. And it's not our fault that their quarterback went down and their program went in the shitter. I just look at, Louisville is still coached by Bobby Petrino, right? I mean, we gave it the old college try. I mean, sorry that Lamar Jackson left. I mean, again, that's not our fault.
It's one player. It's funny to me that if Lamar Jackson, no one's talking about Louisville. They're not in any preseason top 25 poll. You tend to see predictions with them, and you see 7-5, 6-6, and that's probably who they are. That's probably right. But had Lamar Jackson come back to play his senior year, I think they would be ranked in everyone's top 15. And that's just one guy. And who's to say Jawan Pass won't prove to be a very good player?
I'd say top 10.
Yeah, maybe top 10. So, but regardless of that, exactly as you said, Luke, Alabama can't put Alabama on the schedule. Who can Alabama play where everyone in the country says, all right, boy, what a game. That boy, what bold scheduling. Like you said, the only teams to schedule that would get that kind of attention will be Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. And then the second you schedule them and then see them again in the postseason, people complain about that. We've already seen this game. You know, Alabama 1 year ago. How about this? 1 year ago, Alabama's opener was hailed as the biggest opener in the history of college football. And less than a year later, people are complaining about Alabama's scheduling. I mean, make up your minds, people. You know, and what happens is Alabama, being a victim of their own success, wins most, if not every single one of these type games, and then it's Alabama doesn't play anybody. Well, maybe Alabama's beating good teams. How about that theory that they are good teams? It is a tough schedule. Alabama just wins the game. That's what I
well, not only that. Listen, so what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do, Jimmy? Are we supposed to play? I mean, I forget Clemson, Ohio State. Are we supposed to play Penn State and let's say let's throw Central Florida in there for shits and giggles? Are we supposed to play those three while somebody like I don't know, let's call it Texas, or Texas is probably not a bad example. They play USC this year. Let's say, shoot, I'm trying to think of somebody off the cuff. I can't use Penn State. Wisconsin. I mean, who in the hell is Wisconsin? Who in the hell are they playing? Do they have a tough schedule this year? I mean, I don't think so.
I don't know.
I mean, they have to play
Tim Brando's complaining
whatever bunk ass teams are in their division.
That's right.
You know,
yeah.
Why do we have? Because we're better than everybody, we have to play a tougher schedule so that everybody can get even. Is that what we're trying to do here? Everybody's not going to be even.
You know, in 2015,
I've said this a million times. Go ahead.
Well, I was saying 2015, Alabama played a schedule that ESPN said when the season was over, for a team that won the national championship, that was the toughest schedule anyone's ever played in history. For a team that won the national championship, that was the toughest route ever for anyone. And but people don't remember that. They see the margin of victory, and that they see an SEC that right now is a little down. It's hard for Alabama to have too many big games in the SEC because the league is down. And, you know, Florida State ended up having their worst season since Burt Reynolds was playing there. In large part, by the way, because Alabama sort of destroyed all of their preseason momentum, and secondly, hurt their quarterback. You know, and their head coach is looking for another job, you know, all the way through the season. But too much is made of Alabama's schedule. Too much is made of it. But I think of all of it, this is what gripes me the most. And this is what we're going to hear this season. We can start talking about it right now because this is what we're going to hear all season long, Luke. And that is Alabama's going to win every week this fall, probably by a lot of points. And we will hear all year, yeah, they look impressive, but how do we know they're good? Because the narrative is going to be that the schedule's bad and the schedule's weak, and the how do we know they're good is what we're going to be hearing in November about Alabama. And that is utterly the most ridiculous question. How do I know we're good? Because I've paid attention to the last decade of college football. That's how I know they're good. Don't think that Alabama's going to get to January, play a Clemson, and then get beat 35-3 because they were doing it with smoke and mirrors all along. No. And I'm not guaranteeing some sort of big win over Clemson. I'm just saying that we will hear that all fall. How good is this Alabama? We don't know how good they are. Yeah, we do. We know exactly how good they are. We've seen it over the past 10 years.
See, it's funny. They won't admit we're good unless we play somebody that can beat us. And if somebody beats us, it's like, we told you they're no good. I mean, it's really screwed up.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And then I've always said this, that you know, all these things aren't created equal. People keep saying these Power 5 schools have no shot. I totally agree they have no shot, and they shouldn't have a shot. I mean, if UCF wants to now, see, UCF should have to schedule a Michigan State, Texas Tech, and Mississippi State. If they had those three teams on their schedule, just those three teams, I mean, they're not world beaters. If they had those three teams on their schedule along with their conference schedule, then I'm going to give them more credit. But last year, one of the good teams they had on their non-conference was Georgia Tech. That game got canceled. The other good team they had on their schedule was Maryland. They weren't that great. I mean, the best team they beat until the bowl game, and I don't like using the bowl game as that barometer, is Auburn. I mean, or Memphis. Memphis was the best team they beat until that time.
Yeah, and that was a close game, by the way. I think, didn't they? I mean, it was a high-scoring close game. And here's the thing,
they beat the dog piss out of them the first time.
All we've heard for the past 9 months is people like Tim Brando complaining that there's no path for a non-Power 5 team, that there's no path, there's no way of creative system where there's no way. That's bullshit. And I'll tell you exactly why. You know who there is a path, and you know what it is? It's Florida Atlantic. They play Oklahoma at Oklahoma in week 1. If Florida Atlantic somehow, some way beat Oklahoma in week 1 and won their league and finishes undefeated, they might be in the playoff. That could happen because they have the road win at Oklahoma. And so I'm just saying there is a path. Now, you have to be lucky to have that game scheduled, but there is a path. I can see Florida Atlantic being in the playoff. They have a way better chance than Central Florida did a year ago.
No, I agree. I'm looking at Florida Atlantic schedule right now, and see they've got Oklahoma, they've got Air Force. Then I'm looking, they ain't got a lot else after that. But if they need an Oklahoma, Air Force, and probably one other to even be in the conversation. That's what they need. And I'm sorry that you have to go on the road to Oklahoma, because most of the, and everybody say, well, that's not fair. They got to go. Yeah, but see, the other times they get Marshall on the road or La Tech at home. And, it's funny. They're like, Alabama, you're always playing somebody like Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky's in Florida Atlantic's freaking conference.
Yes, and one of Florida Atlantic's tougher games. For Florida Atlantic, that's one of their tougher games. I mean, in other words, Western Kentucky could be their stumbling block to finishing undefeated, while in Alabama, it's why are you playing those guys? They're busy knocking someone else out of the playoff. Alabama. Boy, this schedule.
What I was going to say was, it gets me pissed off because I look at it like, look, okay, I admit. Yeah, we have some gimmies on our schedule, just like every other D1 team does for the most part, by the way. And some of it is just to make a little bit of money. And really, I don't see why anybody has a problem with that. I like some of those games because it lets me take my 17 children, and it's a little bit cheaper. I can get in the stadium, and I can leave early knowing that the game is well in hand. And you can talk about the Power 5 teams work at a disadvantage. They do work at a disadvantage, just like Alabama basketball works at a disadvantage to Kentucky basketball. I mean, I'm fine with that, just like, and vice versa in football. But here's the other thing. If we're going to start evening the playing field all across the board, then what you better take into effect is things like, okay, Florida and Texas and Georgia and California put most of the prospects on team. Those teams in those states have a clear advantage to other states. So what we have to do, Florida, you can only take 5 people from Florida, and Wyoming can come take 5 people from Florida and 5 people from Georgia. Because Wyoming has one D1 prospect every 4 years, and he usually leaves early to go pro rodeo. So it's not apples to oranges. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think this? I mean, Florida
has
so much of an advantage over Maine that we can't even this shit out, man. Maine's going to kick Florida's ass in snow skiing, and that's going to be all day. But you know what? Nobody watches snow skiing. So,
no, I don't watch.
Sorry, Maine.
The Black Bears, the Maine Black Bears. They had a good baseball team.
They did beat Mississippi State.
Yeah, they've been good in baseball.
Didn't they beat Mississippi State?
I think they did. I think they almost made it to the College World Series.
They beat them with Mississippi.
Yeah, didn't they?
No, they beat Mississippi State in football.
They did?
Don't you remember that with Sylvester Creek?
For some reason, I've forgotten that entirely. How did I forget that? But well, they beat. I was assuming you're saying they beat Mississippi State in baseball. They might have, because I think their baseball team is okay. But anywho, Alabama is going to lose out on any scheduling fest because there is only. I mean, we scheduled USC a while ago. You said, well, let's not make fun of Texas. They scheduled USC, and I agree that that's a great non-conference game, and Texas and USC should be applauded for scheduling that game. However, Alabama's playing USC and in about 2 years, and when that game comes up, we'll still be reading during the offseason that Alabama doesn't play anybody. We play the same schools
And
that anyone else plays them, and it's a huge game. Alabama plays them, and it's like, why don't you play somebody good? Well, who?
I know. And here's the other thing. We next year we do play Duke, and I don't like that any more than anybody else. But Greg Byrne came and talked to some of us several months ago, and we were supposed to play, ironically enough, Arizona in that game. And something happened. I don't know what happened. I don't remember all the specifics, but that got nixed, and I think they had to scramble to find somebody, and they found Duke. And if they still have, Cutcliffe there, then it's, at least there's the story of he went to Alabama and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's a sucky game. I can't really defend it. I wish we were playing somebody else, but you can't really jump us too hard. I mean, when we played Virginia Tech twice and West Virginia, and we've played USC and Florida State and Clemson a couple of times and on down the line, I mean, we've tried our best at Penn State in a home and home, and we've also got Texas and Notre Dame coming up. I mean, it's kind of hard. And Miami, by the way, coming up. It's kind of hard to jump Alabama's ass about scheduling, isn't it?
There's the reality also of not a lot of teams are lining up to want to play Alabama right now. I mean, the only teams that want to play Alabama. Yeah. I mean, if you want to win a championship, I'm not sure Alabama's who you want to play in week one. Look what happened to Florida State a year ago. So there's that. And secondly, these neutral site games are usually a creation of the network that's putting them on TV. Alabama, I know this will confuse people forever. And do I know exactly how it works? No, but I do know it doesn't work this way. Alabama didn't pick up the phone and call Duke first. I mean, Duke didn't pick up the phone and call Alabama first. ESPN, or the ABC network, ABC, ESPN, they're the ones that make the calls. This is their game. It's on TV. They're the ones paying the freight. They set it up. It almost works like this. Alabama makes themselves available to ESPN for, yes, we will play in those games. We are open to it, and we are fine with it, and we want to play in that type game in 2019 in the opening weekend. And then about 3 months later, we get a call and ESPN said, it's done. We got you in the game. You're playing Duke. And we're like, what the hell, man? What do you mean Duke? But it's not Alabama picking up the phone. Yeah, it's not Alabama picking up the phone and saying, you know who we ought to play? Duke. No, I mean, it comes from the network. But I'm sure Alabama to some extent has some sort of veto power. But at the same time, you have to keep the TV partners happy. You have to always remember who's paying the freight here. And but is ESPN going to get criticized for the Alabama-Duke game? No, Alabama will. Duke's not going to get criticized either. People are going to look at Duke and go, wow, y'all don't win a lot of games. And look, y'all have national TV and a huge payday. Is ESPN going to get criticized even though they're the ones that set up the game? No. Alabama will get criticized as if we picked out of 130 teams, we picked up the phone and said, we want to play Duke. No, that was never. Yeah. But Alabama's going to get the shit for it. You watch.
Yeah, and ESPN, you were right, who scheduled the game, they'll have some pundits on there going, man, why didn't Alabama play anybody? Wishing Nick Saban would say, like he'd tap on the microphone and go, y'all set this game up. Thank you very much. Is this thing on? Because y'all set the damn game up.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Well,
all right. Anything else to throw out there?
I just think recruiting. I mean, we're down to 5 to 8 spots. I think what's going to happen is a couple of guys committed to us might not end up signing in December. It's not really fair to project who that might is.
Does one of them rhyme with Richard Maney?
I think that's a fair guess. Was he? Here's a great way, and I don't even know the answer to this myself, but I think there's a pretty good clue here. I would take the list of commitments and put it up against who is at that Champions Cookout deal. We had one before. I think we're having a second cookout. If you're committed and not going to either cookout, I'm not exactly sure I'd wager that kid ends up on the list in December. But that's just my perhaps faulty line of reasoning. But that might be a good way if you want to try to figure out who might not be, signing in December. But hey, it's not like, hey, this is inside scoop. This is just historical fact. Kids committed to you on July 9th may not be the same ones signing with you on December 20th. That's a fact. That's a fact at Alabama. It's a fact everywhere else. So it's never in writing until it's in writing. So I think Alabama probably has a few more spots available than people guess. Lots of big names still out there. I'm excited about several. Nakobe Dean is one of my favorites, the inside linebacker from Horn Lake, Mississippi. He's been one of my favorites all along. I think the George Pickens recruitment's really interesting because he's a long time now committed to Auburn. Alabama is really making a push for him. So one of the few big-time Alabama-Auburn battles down the stretch may be for Pickens. I'll tell you a kid that not a lot of people talk about that I like is Wendell Robinson, a wide receiver from Kentucky. Very similar to Jalen Waddle a year ago. He's the same type kid, isn't rated as highly as Waddle was, but is the same type kid, kind of a do everything wide receiver. You could line up at back. You could line him up in the slot. He can return kicks. He can return punts. He's one of these make you miss in a phone booth type exciting wide receivers. I like him a lot. He came to Alabama's camp and impressed Alabama enough to get some level of offer from Alabama after camp this summer. So I like him. I'm interested in seeing what happens with his recruitment.
Who's the next guy to commit?
Let's say it's going to be one of those defensive linemen because Alabama's going to take one or two more defensive linemen, and Alabama's recruiting a lot of what I would call jumbo-sized tackles, one from Hawaii, one from Utah, one from Louisiana, all well over 300 pounds. Alabama's got to make a decision there about who to take. I'll go a limb and say that big tackle from Utah, Suka, I think people call him. I think that's his nickname.
Don't guys from Utah scare you a little bit though?
Yes.
Right
now? Yes. I mean, the competition is obviously this kid is not playing. He's not playing against Hoover and Prattville and Daphne in his high school games. He's playing Tuscaloosa Academy. He's playing Oneonta. He's playing Op. He's not. And kids like that sometimes face a significant learning curve once they're in the SEC. Imagine going from what I call that small school country ball to playing the SEC. The SEC is one notch below the NFL. It's very difficult for a lot of kids to make the transition, and studies have shown, and I'm a big believer in just in terms of recruiting in state. You take a kid from Hoover, you take a kid from Prattville, there is a much better chance of that kid panning out than the kid you take from the 1A or 2A school. And it's specifically because of that. I grew up in an environment where you had to be very good just to get on the field. And that's exactly what the SEC is like. So yeah, when we take a kid from Utah, I'm going to have some doubts until we see him out there.
Okay. I wonder this though. I was about to go off and say you could have the same concern about Jaleel Billingsley because he plays in a private school like OJ Howard did.
Yep.
But Jaleel Billingsley is close to Chicago. So I know he's tough. When I fly into Chicago, they give you brass knuckles coming off the plane. I mean, you got to be tough in Chicago. That said, okay, while we're scared of kids from Utah, those are usually white quarterbacks, right? This is a Samoan defensive tackle.
That's a great
Samoan defensive tackles. I have not seen a bad one yet. I mean, I don't mean that to be. I'm not trying to paint a broad brush here. I'm just saying.
And Utah's good. I mean, the University of Utah has a good football program, and they have a lot of kids.
Is it racist if it's a compliment? Is it racist if it's a compliment? That's what I'm asking. I'm asking for a friend.
We'd have to
because I mean, like if I say every Samoan I've ever seen that plays football defensive tackle wise has been good, that's not racist, is it? That's a compliment, right? There's a difference.
I'll admit I'm scared to answer.
Well,
I'm
look,
scared to
well,
answer.
wouldn't you? Well, I guess it would be
If
strange.
it's bad, I'm going to make it worse if I answer. I don't know. I got nothing against the
if
Samoans.
I
I love them like you do.
I'm going
No
to
doubt.
Syracuse today. If I'm out and about in Syracuse and some giant Samoan comes up to me and says, "You know what? You said all defensive tackles that are Samoan are good. I played defensive tackle and I sucked. I'm going to beat your ass." You know, then I'm in trouble.
That could happen.
I'm going to be like, but if you're terrible, you might not be able to beat me. You're probably going to be able to beat me.
It's a heck of a discussion, considering all you ask me is who's going to commit next. When we get into that. 10 minutes ago, you asked me who's going to commit next, and here we are, and you're getting killed in Syracuse. You know, one thing about, you know, in comparing Billingsley to OJ, and you just said it, this might seem strange because what the OJ Howard we remember is the OJ Howard his senior year and the one that was drafted, I think, 19th by the Buccaneers. OJ did play as a true freshman. He was in the rotation, played quite a bit as a true freshman. But going back to that, OJ was not a good blocker at all.
True.
And the biggest play he made all year is when we lined him up outside in the slot against LSU, and he took kind of a little slant route to the house, playing that outside slot position. I would say because of the depth, when Billingsley shows up, it won't be like OJ's freshman year. Billingsley will have several tight ends ahead of him. Maybe harder for him to get in the lineup as a freshman. What I'm saying is OJ had a learning curve himself. OJ was not the same player his freshman to senior year. He was a much better all-around player his senior year than the OJ that showed up. And I think Billingsley is going to be very similar in that way. Perhaps we can redshirt Billingsley. There's the new rule in place now that you can play 4 games and still redshirt. That's going to be highly beneficial to a lot of kids. And yeah, I would think Billingsley is going to be similar to OJ in that way as well. We're going to see a much different Jaleel Billingsley his senior year or junior year than we would his true freshman year.
And I'm going to continue to give props to all these recruits and their video production teams, whoever the hell they are. If they're doing this shit themselves, blown away, I still have problems taking a video on my iPhone. And these guys have edited and you know, have drones and shit involved. It's incredible. I mean,
they do
really
largely.
Cool.
I think their families
come a long way from somebody
people.
pulling a puppy out. Yeah,
I think largely. I know the AL.com people do a lot of those videos for in-state recruits, and they're paid to do that by the families and the kids. So I think a lot of it is sort of professionally done to an extent. Some of the kids do it themselves or take more control of the creative process. But I know this, I prefer the commitment videos to the old sit at the table and pick a hat deal. That was
yes.
That had
Now
jumped
here's
the shark.
what I think would be cool. This can only work with a recruit like Shane Lee, who is built like a brick shithouse, right? This can only work with him, or Julio Jones, somebody like that. Or I'll tell you who would have been awesome is Dante Hightower. If Dante Hightower had committed with that faux fur coat he was wearing in his profile picture for Rivals, that would have been the coolest thing ever. But now I think you have to, you know how like movies get all these special effects and they keep trying to out FX one another, and then finally one like goes the other direction and they use fewer special effects and it's really cool again. I think a recruit now, somebody like a Shane Lee would come out, like have a huge audience of people, have just a table with not even a cloth on it, like have and seats in the back, and just walk up to the microphone. They'll be like, and now Shane Lee's going to make his commitment. Walk out to the microphone wearing like a V-neck T-shirt and some, you know, jorts or something, and just walk out there and say Alabama, and then walk away. Like that's what needs to happen next. Like the smallest amount of fanfare you can possibly have, and just say Alabama, and then scan the crowd quietly for 3 full minutes. 3 minutes.
3 full minutes with saying
That's
nothing.
What you'd have to do. That'd be badass. Saying nothing.
If your career plan was to produce these commitment videos, you might need to make another plan. I think these kids are more likely.
Wouldn't they kind of
skydive from a helicopter?
Wearing the parachute, when the parachute opens, is Alabama on the inside?
With like Jay-Z
cool.
as their tandem jump partner who's rapping all the way down. And they land in a sea of the New York City. They land in the sea of New York City Rockettes, all high kicking, with Alabama on the bottom of their high heels. I think that's more likely to happen than your
I like
plan.
the idea of.
Not to say that I don't like your plan. I
see, my plan is psychotic for a linebacker, and that's why I think it works. It's like it would scare.
You're right.
Even when he's a junior, the people across the be like, okay, that's that dude who just looked at the crowd menacingly for 3 minutes and said nothing and scared the shit out of everybody. I don't want to block him. But I do think it'd be cool, like our next wide receiver. I think he should have how many letters are in Alabama? ALABAMA. There's 7 letters, right? Okay. So I think he should have 4 girls lined up and spell Alabama out on, like A on one butt cheek and then L on another butt cheek and then a new butt cheek and all the way down and have them all twerking as he like announces, I'm going to Alabama. I have
to admit, I like this idea a hell of a lot better than the last idea. That was
good. It depends on who's twerking.
I'm in on that idea. And my final, I've said this for a year or two, and some kid is eventually going to do this. I like it so much. I think on signing day, a junior that's got like a whole year, it's like this December 20th, a junior who's very highly recruited needs to say, I am considering all 130 Division I schools starting today. And on Twitter, each week I'm going to eliminate 2. And then I think eliminate each Friday. So he eliminates 2 or 3.
That's great.
Each week.
Each day.
And starts. Each day. So like day one, he's like, okay, this week I'm eliminating Army and Wake Forest. And then it all the way down to the final 2 or 3. It's a year-long thing. People be hanging on the edge of their seats.
Yeah, but Jimmy, you got to do I think you got to piss off a power program coupled with the program you knew you wouldn't go into. Say, okay, this week I'm the number 2 rated player in the country. I'm a 5-star, and I'm going to eliminate Wake Forest and USC. And USC's going to be, where the hell are you learning us in that shit?
Exactly. See, that's why this is a great idea. You get to piss off everyone. Everyone is angry.
Yeah.
Hey, especially
do it the
start
whole
with
way.
the video. Start with the video. Start with 130 hats on the table. There are 130 hats on my table.
Just show them at Lids, like that place in the mall, and they can have all these. They're like hats everywhere. That's actually, God damn it, this is cool.
Or jump out of the plane, like we said. Jump out of the plane every week, holding 2 flags.
It's a much better idea than my scary Shane Lee videos.
Jump out of the plane holding the 2 flags of the school you're not going to this week. I'm not going to Rice. I'm not going to San Jose. And you're parachuting out. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's not expensive.
I'm not going to San Jose or Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's like, what the hell, man?
It's not expensive at all either to do that every week.
I know. Oh,
See, no, I mean, we should be in charge.
I think you. Oh God, I want to find a recruit so bad that will let us run their PR machine.
Say, hey, you know how the entire AP Top 25 has offered you? Yeah, sorry, we've ruined all that. Now your only option is San Jose and Rice. All right.
All right. This is all right, we got to go, but I have no idea why I thought of this, but I'm going to tell you, I thought of this 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was a good question to ask you. So I thought it was such a good question that I wrote it down, and I have kept this with me because I knew I'd forget it.
Oh, wow.
The other day, about 2 weeks ago, I was watching TV, and one of those random commercials came up about Dr. Pepper, with Little Sweet. Have you ever seen those? Yeah. Little Sweet.
Yeah, it's Justin Guarini from American Idol.
Oh, is that? Is that him?
That's what it is. Yeah, from the Kelly Clarkson year. She beat
That's
out
the
that
first loser of American Idol?
That's correct. It's that guy.
First runner-up.
First runner-up. The one
that's Justin Guarini?
I didn't know that.
He's great.
And it stunned me to learn that. And now it makes me now every time those commercials come on, I'm like, wow, that's Justin Guarini. Yep. Believe so.
I'm stunned. Okay. Well, I have no idea why I thought this. This is, you talk about totally on a tangent. But I thought to myself, in 2006, if Alabama had had Little Sweet on the offensive line instead of Chris Capps, would we have beaten Auburn?
Good Lord. You're a dead man.
I mean, that's the worst.
You're a dead man. And you're worrying about some random Samoan in Syracuse saying, "Hey, I was a terrible player. Now you're so racist to imply that everyone I'm related to plays in the NFL but me."
And look, Chris Capps is 10 times the human being I am overall. But and we shouldn't even bring it up. But I had that thought, and I was like, Jimmy might appreciate that. Lauren said it all that out, so I don't get killed by Chris Capps.
Who knows? Maybe Caps can sing. Maybe Caps can sing those.
If Caps can sing, that would be kind of cool.
Yep. All right, next week is Media Days.
But that was a
Why
bad
don't we
memory
lie
for
and
me.
say next week we'll be live for Media Days, as if they would let us in?
I might try and get a pass to go to Media Days. I think I can. I don't know that I will. Actually, it's in Atlanta, so I'm not.
You're in
Atlanta,
media.
so I'm not.
You're in legit media. Maybe
Doesn't it suck it's in Atlanta?
It's so weird, and I hate it because I'm a traditionalist, so I hate it. But that being said, it's a bigger media center, and who knows? It's all on TV now. It used to never be on TV. Now the entire thing's on TV. So we'll be tuned in on the SEC network, and you can tune in here and get our hot takes. We'll try to do a couple shows next week.
Screaming hot takes.
Hey, I don't mind doing a whole show on the other teams. We can do a whole show on the other teams. This is what we think about Georgia. This is what we think about Missouri. That sort of thing.
Let's do the whole. Well, let's just do our schedule.
Okay.
I don't want to do Kentucky if we're not playing Kentucky.
I think Alabama is on Wednesday next week, so we need to do it. We could do a pre Alabama show and a post Alabama show, or something like that.
Is Vandy the same day as we are? I think somebody like that is the same day. And if I were Vandy's coach, like I would just sit at the same table. When Nick Saban goes down, I'd sit at the same table, and like after Nick to answer a question, I'd be like, "Yeah, he nailed it. That was great." Because you would get a lot more publicity that way, wouldn't you? All right, I'm at the Hampton Inn in Cincinnati. I got to go catch a flight.
Gotcha, man. All right, roll Tide.
That's as glorious as it sounds. All right, roll Tide. See you, man.
Roll Tide. All right, talk to you next week, buddy.